The train's whistle cut through the afternoon like a knife through old leather, and Evelyn Mercer felt her stomach drop for the 100th time since leaving Chicago. She pressed her gloved hand against the smudged window, watching the landscape transform from rolling green hills into something harder, sharper. The mountains in the distance looked like broken teeth against a sky so blue it hurt to look at directly. Montana. The word had sounded romantic in Calvin Rourke's letters. He'd described sunsets that painted the valley gold, cattle that grazed across land stretching farther than the eye could see, a house with a wraparound porch where they'd drink coffee and watch the seasons change together. His handwriting had been careful, almost delicate. A man who takes his time, Evelyn had thought back then, folding those letters and rereading them until the creases went soft. That was 4 months ago. Now the train was slowing, brakes screaming against metal, and Evelyn's reflection in the window looked like someone else entirely. Dark circles shadowed her eyes. Her brown traveling dress, the nicest thing she owned, was wrinkled from 3 days of sitting upright in passenger cars that smelled like tobacco and unwashed bodies. She'd barely eaten since St. Louis, partly because she couldn't afford the dining car prices, mostly because fear had a way of killing appetite. The conductor's voice boomed through the car. "Hollow Creek, 15 minutes." Evelyn's hands trembled as she gathered her things. One carpet bag. That was all she'd brought from Chicago. Everything she owned in the world fit in one bag that weighed maybe 15 pounds. The woman across the aisle, older, severe-looking, wearing black like she was in mourning, watched Evelyn with open curiosity. "Meeting someone?" the woman asked. "My fiancé," Evelyn said. The word felt strange in her mouth. She'd never said it aloud before. The woman's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Pity, maybe. "You're a mail-order bride." It wasn't a question. "I prefer to think of it as correspondence," Evelyn said stiffly. "Honey, you can call it whatever helps you sleep at night." The woman leaned back, folding her arms. "But out here? You're what you are. And what you are is a woman desperate enough to marry a stranger." The words hit like a slap. Evelyn turned away, heat flooding her face. She wanted to argue, to defend herself, to explain that she wasn't desperate. She was practical. Chicago had been eating her alive one rent payment at a time. The factory where she'd sewn sleeves onto men's shirts had closed after the owner died. Her landlord had already started making the kind of suggestions that made her skin crawl. Calvin's letters had arrived exactly when she needed an escape route. But desperate and practical looked the same from the outside. The train jerked to a halt, and Evelyn nearly fell forward into the empty seat in front of her. Outside, Hollow Creek materialized like something from a fever dream. It was smaller than she'd imagined, smaller than seemed possible for a town that existed on maps. One main street, maybe. Wooden buildings that leaned slightly like old men who'd forgotten how to stand straight. Mountains loomed in every direction, making the valley feel like the bottom of a bowl. And there, on the platform, a handful of people waited. Evelyn scanned their faces through the window, searching for Calvin. He'd sent a photograph 6 weeks ago, a formal portrait showing a man with neat hair parted down the middle, a respectable suit, eyes that stared directly at the camera without smiling. She'd studied that photograph so many times she could draw it from memory. But now, looking at the platform, she didn't see him anywhere. "You getting off or not?" The conductor stood in the aisle, already reaching for her bag. "Yes, sorry." Evelyn stood, smoothing her dress even though it was pointless. She moved toward the exit on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. The Montana air hit her first, dry and sharp, and nothing like Chicago's humid thickness. It smelled like dust and pine, and something else she couldn't identify. Animals, maybe. The platform boards creaked under her boots as she stepped down, carpet bag clutched in both hands like a shield. The other passengers flowed around her, a businessman in a bowler hat, 2 miners still dusted with ore, a young couple who looked as lost as she felt. The train hissed behind her, already preparing to leave, already abandoning her. "Calvin?" Evelyn called out, her voice smaller than she'd intended. "Calvin Rourke?" No one answered. The people on the platform stared at her. An older man in a leather apron, a woman with a baby on her hip, 2 cowboys who looked like they'd stepped out of a dime novel, all dust and worn denim. Their expressions ranged from curious to confused to something that looked uncomfortably close to pity. "Excuse me," Evelyn said, approaching the man in the apron. "I'm looking for Calvin Rourke. He was supposed to meet me here." The man's face did something complicated. He glanced at the woman with the baby who looked away quickly. "You're the bride," the man said finally. I. Yes. Is he here? Is Calvin here? Behind her, the train whistle screamed. Evelyn turned just in time to see it pulling away, black smoke pouring from its stack. The sound of it leaving echoed off the mountains, and suddenly the valley felt impossibly large, and she felt impossibly small. He left town 4 days ago, the man said. The words took a moment to land. When they did, Evelyn felt something cold slide down her spine. I'm sorry, what? Calvin Rourke. He left town 4 days back, rode out east, didn't say when he'd be returning. But Evelyn's voice cracked. She cleared her throat, tried again. But I sent a telegram 3 weeks ago. He knew I was coming today. He knew. The woman with the baby stepped closer. Her expression was gentler than the man's, but that somehow made it worse. Honey, Calvin always knows. That's the problem. I don't understand. You're the fourth one, the woman said quietly. Fourth girl to get off that train expecting to marry Calvin Rourke. The platform seemed to tilt. Evelyn grabbed the railing to steady herself. Fourth? First one was 2 years back, the man in the apron said. His voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing weather. Pretty thing from Philadelphia. She stayed 3 days before someone robbed her of everything she had. Disappeared after that. Second girl made it maybe a week before she ran off crying. Said Calvin wasn't the man she'd been writing to. Said something about the letters being written by someone else. Third one? He trailed off, glancing at the woman. Third one vanished, the woman finished. Just up and disappeared one night about 8 months ago. No one knows if she left on her own or if something happened to her. Sheriff looked for her for a while, but she shifted the baby higher on her hip. But Calvin has friends in this town. People who owe him money, people who don't ask questions. Evelyn's carpet bag slipped from her fingers, hitting the platform with a sound like a body falling. She stared at these strangers who were telling her that her entire future had been a lie, that the careful letters, the photograph, the promises, all of it had been some kind of sick game. Why? Her voice came out as a whisper. Why would he do that? Calvin likes to play with things, one of the cowboys said. He'd moved closer without Evelyn noticing, and up close she could see the hard lines around his mouth. Likes to see what he can control. He don't actually want a wife. He wants to know he could have one if he decided to. That's enough, Dutch, the woman said sharply. It's the truth, Martha. The truth isn't always helpful. Evelyn barely heard them arguing. Her mind was racing through calculations. She had $17.38 left after paying for the train ticket. Maybe enough for a week at a boarding house if she was careful. Maybe enough for a ticket back to Chicago if she didn't eat much. But back to what? The factory was closed. Her room had been rented to someone else by now. She had no family left. Her mother died of pneumonia 2 winters ago, her father years before that. She'd burned every bridge to get on that train. And Calvin Rourke had known she was coming, had known exactly what would happen when she stepped onto this platform and found no one waiting. Are there jobs here? The question came out before she'd fully formed it in her mind. Any kind of work? Martha's expression softened further. Honey, I'm not asking for charity. I can work. I can sew. I can cook. I can clean. I'm stronger than I look. Evelyn heard herself talking faster, desperation bleeding through despite her best efforts. I just need something temporary, enough to save for a ticket east. The saloon might... One of the cowboys started. Dutch, so help me. Martha cut him off with a look that could curdle milk. I wasn't suggesting. I know exactly what you were suggesting. They were still arguing when Evelyn heard it. A sound that cut through everything else like light through darkness. A child, screaming. Mama! Evelyn turned just in time to see a small figure break away from the edge of the crowd and run straight at her. A boy, maybe 8 years old, wearing clothes that looked slept in and boots too big for his feet. His face was streaked with dust and tears, and his eyes were wild with something that looked like hope and grief mixed together. He slammed into Evelyn with enough force to nearly knock her over. Small arms wrapped around her waist, and the boy buried his face in her dress, shoulders shaking with sobs that sounded like they'd been building for a long time. Wyatt! A man's voice, sharp with shock. Evelyn stood frozen, hands hovering over the child's back, having no idea what to do. The boy was crying so hard he could barely breathe, repeating the same word over and over into the fabric of her dress. Mama, Mama, Mama. Son, let go of her. The voice was closer now, and Evelyn looked up to see a man striding across the platform. He was tall, rangy in the way of men who spent their lives working outside. His face was weathered, beard untrimmed, eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore a battered hat and clothes that had seen better years. He looked exhausted. "Wyatt, she's not—" The man stopped a few feet away, and something complicated crossed his face as he got a clear view of Evelyn. "Jesus. I'm sorry," Evelyn said quickly. "I don't know. He just—" "You look like her." The man's voice had gone flat. "You look exactly like her." "Like who?" "Sarah. My wife." He said it like the words cost him something. Wyatt's mother. The boy's grip tightened. Evelyn looked down at the top of his head, at the way his whole body was shaking, and something in her chest cracked open. "Where is she?" Evelyn asked quietly. "Cemetery. Been there since January. Winter." The boy had lost his mother in winter, which meant, Evelyn did the math quickly, 4 months ago. Maybe 5. Not long enough for grief this raw to have faded even slightly. "I'm so sorry," she said. "Don't need your sorry." The man's voice was rougher now. He reached for his son. "Wyatt, come on. Let the lady go." "No." The word was muffled but firm. The boy's arms tightened around Evelyn's waist. "No, I want to stay with her." "Son, she smells like Mama did. She feels like Mama." Wyatt's voice broke on the last word. "Please don't make me let go. Please." Evelyn felt tears burning in her own eyes. She'd never had children, had barely been around children. But the desperate need in this boy's voice was something she understood on a level that bypassed logic entirely. She carefully, very carefully, placed her hands on Wyatt's back. The man noticed. His jaw tightened. "You don't have to—" "It's all right," Evelyn said softly. "It's not all right. He's got no right to—" The man stopped, dragging a hand over his face. Up close, Evelyn could see the shadows under his eyes, the lines of stress carved deep around his mouth. "I'm sorry. He hasn't been the same since she died. None of us have." Martha stepped closer, her voice gentler now. "Cole Hale. This is the girl Calvin Rourke brought out from Chicago." Cole's expression hardened. "Another one." "Another one," Martha confirmed. "Hell!" Cole looked at Evelyn, really looked at her, and she saw something like anger flash across his face. Not at her, she realized. At the situation. At Calvin. At the unfairness of it all. "You got anywhere to go?" "No," Evelyn said. There was no point in lying. "Any money?" "Some. Not much." Cole was quiet for a long moment, his hand resting on his son's shoulder. Wyatt had finally stopped crying, but he hadn't loosened his grip on Evelyn. The platform around them had gone silent, everyone watching, waiting to see what would happen next. Finally, Cole spoke. "My ranch is about 10 miles north. House needs work. My boy needs—" He stopped, corrected himself. "We need help. Someone who can cook, clean, maybe help with some of the lighter ranch work. Room and board included, $20 a month." Evelyn stared at him. "You're offering me a job?" "Temporary," he said quickly. "Just until you can figure out what you're doing next. I'm not— This isn't—" He seemed to be struggling with the words. "I'm not like Calvin. This is